Hey everyone, welcome back to Microsoft Dev Radio, where we're talking really cool and interesting CSAs about really passion projects that you're doing on things in Azure. We're bringing everybody to you using Teams, and really excited today to talk to Kathiravan, who's a CSA off the West Coast. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. I talked to you earlier about KEDA, and I don't know a lot about it, admittedly. So just assuming myself and everybody else watching this, explain to us like we're five. What is KEDA? What is it used for?
Sure. Thank you, Sydney. So KEDA is basically a Kubernetes-based event-driven auto-scaling components that can be installed in any Kubernetes cluster. So the cluster can be in on-premise or it could be in the cloud. So with KEDA, you can drive the scaling of any container in Kubernetes based on the number of events that needs to be processed. So it provides a rich event sources for the Kubernetes scaling. So the problem with the existing the default Kubernetes scaling is it's actually reactive. That is, it reacts based on the CPU and memory consumptions of a container, and it's not aware of any of the events that needs to be processed. So for example, I'll give you a scenario. If you have an event-driven app that needs to scale based on the number of events in the shopping cart, so thousands of users add thousands of items in the cart, and KEDA always monitors this cart, and then based on the number of items in the cart, it just scales the containers in the Kubernetes. So that is pretty much about KEDA. Um, so, uh, so Sydney, do you have any other questions? Probably I can answer you.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. You're talking about it kind of gives you more metrics and more factors that you use in your auto scaling logic. What type of customers is this great for? Auto scaling is such a new thing to many of the customers I talk to. So, like, what type of customers do you see using a product like this?
Uh, Yeah, so this is mainly used for, as I mentioned earlier, for example, if you have like event-driven apps, for example, like an e-commerce app, right? So during the Thanksgiving or during the holiday seasons, they'll get like so many of orders. Now they need to scale down. Now they need to scale up and down their containers in the Kubernetes based on the orders that they receive in their in for to the event to the e-commerce application. So as I mentioned earlier, with the existing Kubernetes scaling, it is based only on the CPU and memory. And this Kubernetes scaling is not aware of any of the things that is happening in the shopping cart or in the e-commerce applications. So now, the customers who has got these e-commerce applications, they can leverage KEDA. So KEDA is basically, it's very simple, lightweight components that can be deployed easily into a Kubernetes cluster. It just works alongside the standard Kubernetes components like the horizontal pod autoscaler, and it can also extend the functionality without overwriting or duplication. Yeah.
So that's absolutely fascinating because now we could take business logic and things that metrics that matter to our organization and use that as a factor for scaling. So, how do we deploy this? How hard is this deployed? Do I need to stand up separate infrastructure? Can I deploy this into my existing application stacks? Is this a sidecar? Can I just throw this on my cluster? What's the deployment story here?
Yeah, so the deployment story here, I mean, it's very easy to deploy. Actually, for example, it works easily with the Azure Functions, right? So Azure Functions, we all know that it's a seamless service. It's a serverless service that can scale based on the events. So Azure Functions has provided some tools for deployment of KEDA. So as I mentioned earlier, so this KEDA can be deployed with the existing cluster. So you can just deploy this KEDA with the Helm chart that you already use, or with the YAML template that you can configure. So it has got something specific kind called scaled object the kind, and then you just deploy it as part of your YAML template. So it just work along with your horizontal pod autoscaler and without affecting any of their existing functionality. Yeah.
Oh, see, that's absolutely fascinating. Is there any other ways to deploy it other than Azure Functions?
Uh, yeah, so Azure Functions, so Azure, I mean, it works seamlessly with the Azure Functions. It can scale. As I mentioned, Azure Functions can be containerized and then it can be deployed into the Kubernetes. And KEDA can help scale up and down these functions. And there are like other event sources that KEDA supports. For example, like Azure Storage Queue, blob storage, even hubs, and even like, so because this is like a vendor independent, it supports AWS, SQS queues, GCP pub subs, RabbitMQ, and so on. Yeah.
So it's absolutely that sounds incredible. It sounds like if I'm a cloud native organization and we're building everything, cloud first, this is pretty easy to adopt. What if I'm the opposite? What if I'm very much an enterprise on premises um, customer, and I'm really excited about the potential of this, but I want to use it. Is there a hybrid story? Um, is there on premises story with KEDA?
Yeah, definitely. So KEDA can be deployed to any Kubernetes cluster. So Kubernetes is actually can Kubernetes can run in on-premise as well as in or in the cloud infrastructure or in the managed services like AKS, right? So you can just take the KEDA and then you just deploy it directly into directly into your on-premise cluster, and it will start work. Actually, you can the same like hybrid story. You can integrate that with cloud AKS too. Yeah.
Wonderful. This all again sounds really exciting. So okay, you got me interested. I want to get started on this. Where do I go to learn more? How do I get started? What if I want to go deeper? What's my resources out there that I can use to learn more about this?
Yeah, you can go to GitHub. Actually, that's because it's a open source. It's available in GitHub, and then there is it's called like keda.sh. HTTP. Probably I can share you in the chat. I mean the description, and you can directly go and so KEDA. It's open source. It's available in GitHub, and it's available. There's a separate website called keda.sh where you can go and find all the documentations, and there are some cool samples too, which you can try on your own. Yep.
Awesome. So we're going to make sure all these links you're mentioning are in the description box so that anybody watching this can go check out these resources, learn more, get started. So last question. If I want to just jump in and get started, try to convince my organization to implement this, any best practice, lesson learned, cool trick or tip that you want to share with the world so that everybody, have a good time trying this out for the first time?
Yeah, sure. So if you're new to KEDA, I mean, so what I mean, the one easy option is like you don't even have to have a cluster deploy in a cloud or AKS or anything. You can use the existing Azure functions, and then you can even have like a minikube, the Kubernetes minikube, and then you can easily deploy that in your development environment. And with Azure functions, you can easily debug on locally before you actually deploy that into before that actually deploy into the cloud or on the real Kubernetes cluster. Yeah.
So, Caddy Reverend, thank you so much for coming on. This is really exciting. I'm going to make sure everybody click these links down below. We're going to continue bringing more CSAs. We're going to keep talking to them, powered by teams. So if you're not already subscribed to this channel, please do. We're going to continue bringing on, and I hope to bring you back because definitely have some more dev questions I want to ask you because I kind of get in it sense that you have a lot of experience on the dev side and definitely want to talk about really cool, interesting tools that developers can use out there to make their applications more tightly integrated with both their auto-scaling components, with cloud services. This is the type of fascinating stuff that everybody wants to hear about. So thank you
Yeah.
again for coming
You
on.
can add Visual Studio. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. So you can add Visual Studio Code too. You can directly deploy from Visual Studio Code.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely awesome. So we're definitely going to make sure there's some links to that too. So again, thank you so much for coming on.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, and we will all see you. We'll see you all. Excuse me. Next time.